Hi, everyone. I'm Jethro. I just wanted to introduce myself in a little more personal way than it's possible to do just in writing. So it's been wonderful learning with all of you so far. I've really enjoyed our conversations on the discussion board. I thought I'd just say a brief word about week 2 and what we're focusing on in week 2. These first 2 weeks are kind of introductory units before we start focusing on different orientations toward Tanakh, different genres of Tanakh texts, and kind of more in-depth on Tanakh texts themselves. So last week was about the structure of the Tanakh, and this week is focused on biblical history. I think it's important to just know the sequence of events that are described in the Bible and that have some basis in history. So I first of all want to acknowledge that by looking at history in this way, we are de facto kind of taking on the what I'd call the contextual orientation, which means looking at the Bible in its historical context, in its ancient Near Eastern context, not assuming that everything in the Bible is true, but kind of comparing it to other ancient Near Eastern documents and inscriptions and the archaeological record. So we're not focused on the contextual orientation this week. We're focused on the history, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we are kind of using that orientation toward the Tanakh. The background reading is from Raymond Scheindlin's A Short History of the Jewish People, a terrific book that I highly recommend. And in those pages, he basically just lays out for us the sweep of biblical history, the sequence of events, the important figures, and that's just important. It's kind of literacy. It's an important thing to know if you're not already familiar with that. Some of you probably are, in which case it will be a review and kind of interesting to see Scheindlin's presentation and Scheindlin's take on these events. But for some of you, it will probably be clarifying and teaching you a little bit about this history that you may not have known. The Tanakh reading this week, the Tanakh readings are actually a few selections that show us the Tanakh itself kind of summarizing this history. The history is told at great length, mostly in the books of the former prophets, Joshua, Yehoshua, through Melachim Bet, 2 Kings. The former prophets tells that history, although there are kind of contradictions and, there historians and archaeologists debate which parts are historically accurate and which are not. And then the history is also told in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, in the Ketuvim section, the writing section of the Tanakh, as well as in Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles, which is the very last books of the Tanakh in the Ketuvim section. So this history is told at great length in the Tanakh, but it is also summarized in a few key passages that seem to kind of be saying, this is the takeaway, this is what we want you to know about the story. And that's in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, Yehoshua, Joshua, and Nehemiah. So when you're reading those Tanakh passages, it is interesting. I want you to kind of think about how that compares to the story that Scheindlin tells, and to think about how does the Tanakh tell this story or summarize this story? How does it frame it? What does it emphasize? It's also interesting to think about the way the stories are summarized in these three key sections, and how the Torah itself tells the story and where the Torah ends. And that's a discussion question that we'll discuss online. So there's going to be a quick check for understanding due Thursday afternoon that's asking you to put some key events in chronological order. There's some discussion board questions. By the way, you can post your initial discussion board post as a response to someone else if you want, if someone else has already posted, as long as you're answering the question. You don't have to kind of write your own standalone response. You're welcome to, that's fine, but if you read someone else's and you kind of trigger something and you really want to respond to that, answer your question through a response to someone else, that's fine. I really hope we'll get into even more kind of responding to each other in this week's discussion board. There's also, I just want to note, a small assessment on the pedagogy reading, which this week focuses on learning objectives and being clear with ourselves and with our students about what our learning objectives are. I hope you'll take a look at the syllabus and see what the learning objectives for this course are if you haven't already. So that's it for now. I'm hoping that in week 3 we can set up a couple of live discussions using Google Chat, Google FaceTime, or perhaps some other technology. I'll decide which is going to work best for us. So I will see you on the discussion boards. Bye.